Welcome to a brand new Flyers Daily for the 24th of February, 2025. Flyers Daily, as always, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. A lot of memories made yesterday at the Flyers Carnival. By all accounts, a great affair. We'll ask our guest about that. He joins us every Monday for a little something we call Mondays with Meltzer, and we're doing a special hashtag Ask Billy edition from PhiladelphiaFlyers.com and NHL.com. It is Bill Meltzer. Bill, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Always nice to, look forward to our recordings on Sundays for Mondays. So it's always good to work with you.
Yeah, we missed last week, but we've been feeling good over the past week. So we're going to get to a lot of great questions in this episode. But where I want to start is the 46th annual Flyers Carnival. Started out as the Flyers Wives Fight for Lives Carnival so many years ago, and it was groundbreaking as far as pro sports go to have something like that with all the players and staff and management and coaches and everybody there to rub elbows with the fans. What were your impressions of the car? I missed it yesterday for the first time in, I think, 18 years, although I taped some interviews that will feature later this week with some guys from there virtually. I just can't be there because I can't risk getting sick. But what was your impressions of the Carnival?
Unfortunately, this year for myself, for the first time in a long time, I wasn't able to be there. I was there last year for the duration of it. It's always a fantastic event. Always, Flyers charities do a great job. There's always a lot of the alumni guys are there, as well as all the current players too. So, unfortunately for family reasons, I wasn't able to be there this year. But it's, but it's an event that's one of the highlights of every year for the organization, for the players, for the fans. And from everything I've heard, it was another home run for the organization, and a lot of money raised too for a lot of worthy causes. And while we're talking about the Carnival, also, also while we're talking about the Carnival, our condolences go out to Orest Kindrachuk and to Zach. Lynn, Orest's wife, was one of the co-founders of the Carnival. She was instrumental for a lot of years. Lynn just passed away very recently. But she was there obviously in spirit. But that's the Kindrachuk family. I mean, they're an important part of the history of the Carnival. Great. So my thoughts, all of our thoughts are with Orest, their two sons, and the entire family. Good people.
No question. Well said, Bill. And that's the thing. Once a Flyer, always a Flyer. You're a player and you go to this Carnival, you'll be a part of it for the rest of your life when you can be there. And, I remember just going back to when I was a kid in the early 80s and thinking, wait a minute, I can go somewhere and be face-to-face. We look at sports athletes as kids like superheroes. They were almost mythical, when you would think back to Bob Clark and then through the years into Tocchet Zezel and Mark Howe and the Sutters and, all through the years, these different people. And as a kid, to be able to go there and rub elbows with nowadays guys like Matvei Michkov, Claude Giroux for years, Travis Konechny and get to talk with them, I think is just one of the coolest things in the world. And that's a great way to turn moderate fandom into extreme fandom, is that personal touch.
Yeah, hockey people are the best people in many cases. Yeah. They're a great group. They interact so well with the fans. It's so genuine, and they genuinely appreciate the fan support. And again, I mean, it goes to all the money raised goes to worthy causes too. So this event dates back, I guess, to 77 or 78 was the first one, and every generation of the team. Pelle Lindbergh. My only ever actual direct interaction with Pelle was at one of the Carnivals.
The goalies on the team would get in the net back in those days.
Yes, and
it wasn't some pigeon like me.
and Pelle would let every kid score too. Yeah. Every kid. So
I didn't have to let him, Bill. They just did on me.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I remember in the picture in Flyer magazine of him standing there with no mask on and having people take shots on him. It's just incredible. It's great stuff. And great job by Cindy Stutman, her entire team. It's really an organizational wide effort to do that. The Sixers played Saturday night. They had to wait for that game to get out and get empty and get started and get the carousel, Ferris wheel, and everything up and running. And I saw Matvey Michkov a video with his favorite things bag, and apparently he's a big soccer fan, which is cool. A lot of hockey players are a great transferable skill. So great job on the Carnival. Let's wrap with Four Nations real quick, Bill, before we get back to the resumption of the season. Thursday night, Team USA goes down. Travis Sanheim played in that game, wins gold. Konechny, by proxy of being on the roster, wins gold as well. What did you think of the tournament, and what's kind of the takeaway from the tournament? 'Cause I think there's some really important things that the NHL can take from it, learn, and implement going forward to help its game in total.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the tournament was great for hockey. The two USA Canada games were phenomenal. Some of the best hockey I've ever seen. Honestly, I wasn't able to cover it live this year, but it reminded me a lot of the '96 World Cup of Hockey, where they had the 3 games in Philly, which is still the best hockey I've ever seen in person. The 2010
it opened the building, correct? Is that what opened at the time?
It opened the building, yeah. USA Canada, the preliminary round game was the first ever official event. The first unofficial event, which was a week earlier, was actually a free Ray Charles concert.
Wow.
But the first official event with it was World Cup of Hockey. I'll never forget too, on the opening game, when the doors opened, Ed Snyder was right there when the doors were open. He was walking around the concourse all night, asking people, do you like this? Do you like that? How's the experience so far? How are the sight lines? He really wanted that feedback from the fans, and rather than sitting up in his suite, he really wanted to interact with the people coming in. That's one of my big memories of the opening. But just that tournament where I was a kid when the Miracle on Ice happened. It wasn't Miracle on Ice because it was pros versus pros, so it wasn't really a huge upset. But it was something of an upset because Canada had Gretzky, and then they had Lindros, and they had
Messier.
Messier. I mean,
Lemieux did not participate, but yeah, I mean they were unbelievable.
Yeah, it was just an unbelievable team that was favored just to run away with it. And USA played them equally, and obviously ultimately ended up winning it. But the game 1 of the best of 3 finals was another USA Canada game that Canada won that one in overtime. But John LeClair scored in about the final 10 seconds of regulation. Joel Otto won a faceoff against Mark Messier. Play goes to the net, and LeClair scores from the doorstep. And just the building, it was like a Stanley Cup kind of a reaction. I mean, you had people high-fiving, like hugging each other, total strangers. It was an unbelievable atmosphere. You can't totally replicate that off of television, but this was just tremendous hockey. This was hockey at its sport at its very best, honestly, not just hockey.
Yeah.
Those 2 games were tremendous, and it came down. You had a feeling it was going to come down to one mistake or one bounce of the puck.
Yeah.
One way or another.
Just like 2010 in the Olympics, in Vancouver. Yeah.
Exactly. And, listen, you need some breaks sometimes. I mean, Canada got away with a couple of too many men on the ice situations. Yeah. They got a tremendous performance from Binnington, who'd been kind of up and down in the tournament. And, Canada at one point got caught in a bad line change, and they had a 2-man break. The U.S. did. He made the save there. I mean, that could have been right there. So to me, the big takeaway, Jason, pulling it to that, is that USA and Canada, at least best on best, they're equals. They're
on
equal
footing.
It's not an upset anymore if the U.S. beats Canada. It just depends on the game, the tournament. It's a shame. It's a shame it was a 1-game final. I would have loved to have seen another best of 3, but they had to get it in. So
yeah, I think the thing is too is where USA hockey is now is built on the back of 2 events of 1980, 45 years ago, just last week. Well, beating the Miracle on Ice game, beating Russia, then winning gold, and then in '96, the strength of USA hockey, because not long after that is when the US NTDP comes into play. The players, like guys like Austin Matthews, they were kids in '96, and that brought a lot of people to the game. Those best on best international games can do that, and when you have an American team that goes in there and stands up toe to toe with guys just ready to get after it against Canada in '96, and I mean it was nasty. Keith Tkachuk got kicked out of the one game for he got hacked a couple of times, and he ended up two-handing a guy. But you get Monty and Roenick and Mike Richter was the MVP, was phenomenal. Just tremendous hockey, and I think it just grows the game. And the week after the Super Bowl, everything kind of goes dark. The NBA takes their All-Star break. The NHL usually does. It's the worst time to take that break because finally you got the door open. And the NHL nailed it this year with the Four Nations being able to grab the sports enthusiasm of the audience.
100%. And let's be honest here too. What's the last NHL All-Star game you remember anything about? Right?
Maybe one where it wasn't Drew the MVP of one, or somebody was recently.
Wayne Simmons won an MVP one year.
Yeah, but I don't remember anything about the game.
No. And it was before I was born. That it was the Stanley Cup champion against the NHL All-Stars. There'd be fights, where there'd be hits. That was a different age. But they've done different things with the All-Star game. They found something for a little while with the 3-on-3 that worked for a bit. It added a little bit more intrigue to it, but still, it's a lot of there's no defense played. It's
a snore fest.
Yeah, it's not really hockey. Whereas this was. You're not expecting 3 fights in the first 10 seconds too often, then they just focus on the game when they rematch. But just the intensity level, the emotion, the execution, the recoveries are so fast.
Yeah,
you'd have a little bit of a lane there, and it would disappear like that. I mean, just the quality. You had to execute immediately, and in the NHL, sometimes that extra pass, you can get away with it. In that tournament, the extra pass, it was closed off. There was nothing there.
Yeah.
And that just the level of play, the execution, the structure, the way these guys came together as teams.
Yeah. They unified really fast.
Yeah. And you had to. And you go back, you look at the tournament, right? The only team that didn't lose any games in regulation was a team that was eliminated before they played their final game of round robin. That's the thing with such a short tournament is that you got to come together right away.
Yeah, I mean, seeing the physicality of McAvoy on a player like McDavid, you don't see that a lot. And I see a guy, an old stage veteran, and Drew Doughty going back on pucks and just getting pounded. In February, I thought it was awesome. There was an intensity to it. It burned hot, and it was spectacular. And I was skeptical of the tournament. I thought it would be kind of an exhibition. It was no exhibition. That was legit. Let's get to our Ask Billy questions. And I will start with one kind of surrounding that a little bit. Because I don't know the answer to this question, Bill, and it's a great question. The first question comes in from JK at Elevation Radio on X and says, why didn't Alexei Kolosov go back to the AHL during the Four Nations break? It's starting to feel like a lost season for him. He went back to Belarus, oddly enough. I thought that was strange as well. I mean, this is a goaltender that needs a lot of development. I don't know if there was a stipulation made when he came over that this would be an option or not, but what's kind of your impression of how he's been handled this year and how he's progressing as a result of it?
Well, I mean, he's been extremely inconsistent. That's I don't know how much he has progressed. Part of it too was that, I mean, he had the number 2 job. And credit to Fedotov for keeping at it, keeping working, and taking advantage of the opportunity when it arose again. But the truth is that Kolosov had the job, his to lose, and he lost it. I mean, too many games where at least one goal he should have stopped, and quite a few of them, 2 of them, mixed in with some really athletic kind of acrobatic saves. Still young, right? Could still turn a corner. I can't say that I'm happy with his progress so far this season. I still think he'd be better off in the American League. Not that he's been great in the American League. He's been inconsistent with the Phantoms too. And actually, what's turned out to be a pretty good Phantoms team, as a matter of fact. This Phantoms team, they're pretty safely a playoff team. And part of it's the quirks of the division, but it's an improved team. He has a better team in front of him, than say that Sam Ersson had a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
again, I know he's young. It's his first year in North America. He signed for another year in his contract and whatnot, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit more progress this year. That's more of a tangible kind of thing.
Yeah, we've seen flashes. Like he's got skills.
Yeah.
He can move like an NHL goaltender.
Yeah.
The question is going to be, can he read the NHL game? And to be able to learn that aspect of it, you need to play.
You have to play. Yeah.
So I don't know where it goes for him. I think Sam Ersson coming off of Four Nations, especially, I think that's phenomenal for him that he was even there. I think that brings him back with a big bag of confidence. Then to get into a game and perform like he did, I think he comes home with a heap of confidence and standing in his position and where he fits in the global landscape of goaltending. I don't know where it's going for Kosov. To some degree, Fedotov, but I like the fact that he did battle his butt off to when he got the opportunity to take advantage of it. So, and they're going to need him down the stretch as well. Let's get to another hashtag Ask Billy question. This one comes from Vineet. Hashtag Ask Billy says, first and foremost, Jason, you got this. Best wishes for a speedy recovery. Thank you. He said, as Cam York is an RFA after this season, what makes sense for the Flyers in terms of preferred approach? Is it A, a short-term deal, or is it B, a long-term deal, or C, trade him to help secure a young, promising center? There's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack. I don't know that he's part of a center package this offseason. Is a short-term deal in the offing? I can see going both ways on this because I thought last year he had a phenomenal year. He's been a little more erratic this year. And even though he's not a big guy, I don't think he plays small. So I don't worry about his size in that regard. What's the preferred approach, you think, when it comes to Cam York? Because it's an important decision.
I think that he's honestly, I think another bridge deal is the way to go here. Before you, like a two, and then you figure out, and then point you have to figure out, is he long term or is he?
Yeah, then he's ARB eligible, but he's still an RFA.
Exactly. So then you basically have 1 year after, but as you said, he's arbitration eligible, and you always want to avoid arbitration. I mean, listen, that was the situation this year that partially played into Morgan Frost being traded because he'd been unrestricted a year, and they were going to head for an arbitration kind of situation this offseason, and now was the time to make that move. Whereas York's a little bit younger. You wait and you see. Now, I'm not saying that I think that anybody on this team other than Michkov should be untouchable. In the right deal, you include Cam York, but is Cam York a central piece in getting you a real high-end center right now? I think he's well regarded around the league. He certainly had a really good year a year ago, but I think that he's kind of in that in-between level, so that's why I think you maybe go 2 years on him.
Yeah, that would be my preference as well. Let's date a little longer before we get married. And see where things keep developing and where that chemistry is. Because I just don't know that pairing of Sanheim on the right side and York on the left is your top pair. I don't know how that plays out. I'd like to get a little more data on who he should be playing with, or is he a top pair? Maybe he's a second pair. If you go out and you either draft or develop or trade for or sign a top left-handed defenseman for play left side. I'm just not sure yet. So I'd rather punt the 2 years and still leave myself a little protected. This one comes up from Gene Newman. He said, might not be an Ask Billy question, but if the Flyers make an RFA offer sheet and the compensation requires a first round pick, and there's levels based on how much money you offer to a restricted free agent and offer sheet, do the Flyers get to pick which first round pick they send, i.e. the worst of the lot, which will likely be the Edmonton pick? They don't. It's their pick. That's why you see some teams. I think we saw a team recently, maybe it was Chicago, reacquire their first round pick because it's kind of a tip of the hand that they may want to use that in an offer sheet situation. And I think the offer sheet's coming back this summer. Well, not that it really developed big time. I think it's going to be a big part of the equation.
No, I totally do. But yes, they had to be your own picks. I remember when the Flyers had the Chris Gratton offer sheet, and it was a big, because the Flyers basically Tampa Bay didn't match it. They got the compensation. They traded the picks back to the Flyers. Yeah. And there was this whole thing. Well, could the Flyers then use the picks that they reacquired And at that point, under that CBA, that was considered no longer their own picks. Those were Tampa's picks that they got back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
because they transferred hands.
Yeah, but because they transferred hands. But but one thing that still is in effect is they have to be your own picks. They can't be trading for a first round somewhere else to include them. So yeah,
so if you went max offer sheet and you had to go 4 first round picks, you have to have all 4 of your first round picks the next 4 years.
Correct.
That's part of that equation. So it's another element. Yeah, you got all these first round picks, 3 in this year's draft, but you have to have your own. You could have 3, and if none of them are yours, you can't. Yeah. You're not in a situation where you can do that. Let's get to another one here. Benjamin tweets in hashtag Ask Billy. Say clearly Michkov benefited from the break. He was phenomenal Saturday night, by the way.
The whole line was, yeah.
Oh, really good. And we've heard that he's tired from a long season. He hasn't played this much before. But what does an offseason actually look like that'll bring back this fall? That'll be able to play a full season without being worn out. To me, Bill, this is just one of those things for him where going through the season, you learn a lot about how you recover, how you sleep, what you put into your body, and how you need to train. It's not about training harder because the guy trains his butt off. He's on the ice all the time. It's about working smarter, not harder, and focusing on the key areas that can help you sustain through an 82-game season.
For sure. And that's something that players learn, is particularly players coming over from Europe. They learn as they go along. Remember, just a couple of years ago, it was really the first time that Michkov started doing weight training. He's only done that for a couple of years. And this season, this offseason coming in, he worked harder than he ever had before. And as you said, he has a great work ethic. But there's a whole other level and routine. And I do think that a lot of the sports science, the nutrition, those kind of things, that'll be honed in a little bit. His training regimen will be tailored a little bit more. And I do think that he won't hit a wall so much mid-season. Going forward, and I certainly think the break came in at a great time for a lot of guys, guys who had injuries, players who were just maybe a little bit of a slump going into the break, but he was one of the guys I think who benefited the most from that time off.
Yeah, he in that line, as you alluded to in that Edmonton game in the return on Saturday night, they had a tremendous amount of jump. And Bill, the one goal is Couturier's 200th goal as an NHLer. He loses that draw, Couturier does, but he attacks the defenseman who obtains the puck for Edmonton. I can't recall who it was, and gets a stick on it. It's the turnover to Michkov, and he's got to his left Owen Tippett cocked and loaded for a one-timer right from the same side of the ice.
Yes.
And that's the easy play. That's the play 99% of the people make because it's right there. You put it on a tee for him. Goalie doesn't have to move side to side, so it's an easier save. But he goes for the 200 IQ hockey IQ play, crosses body to the back door, and now it's a slam dunk.
Yes.
Tremendous.
And I mean, he saw that Couturier was there. I mean, part of getting there, getting your stick on the ice and being ready to make that, to finish it off too. But that was a supercomputer kind of a play.
It really was.
By Michkov there. And also, also the other one, the second goal that Tippett scored, that backhanded pass that he made, that was just great stuff. That was that whole line, like I said, was flying. But I think Michkov will finish strong this year.
No doubt. I think he's poised for a very strong finish as well. And that break probably came at a perfect time. He can push all in now. I got an interesting question regarding Michkov as in that same regard. And this comes from Dave Bergen. He says, can someone tell me about Michkov's stick length? He said, maybe it's just my perception. It looks like a normal stick just bought from Baby Gap. What say you guys? I've talked about this before. And I went and looked at his sticks in the stick rack. He's taller than me, not much. I'm only 5'7". He's not a towering guy. I think he's probably 5'8", maybe 5'9". His stick doesn't seem short when I picked it out of the rack. But the way he uses his stick makes it look like it's very short.
Yeah. Yes.
Because of the way he keeps it so close into his body with his protection ability.
Yeah.
I think it looks smaller than it actually is.
Yeah. I think sometimes you notice that with centers where it looks like, and it's a normal stick, but they're bending over deep for the face off. It looks like they're all, looks like they have no stick almost, just the blade.
Yeah.
It's just it's just a comfort thing of how you hold it. I mean, I've never picked up Michkov stick. I have seen it on the rack, and it doesn't strike me as being an exceptionally small stick. Some guys it just it's like, wow, that's a small stick. But I can see why it looks that way, because it does. Just the way he uses it. So
Yeah, he's not rangy with his stick, but he's got that tremendous, ability to protect pucks. And you'd think a lot of times when the stick and the blade in particular is closer to the body, you lose a little bit of, the finesse you can get on a backhand like that pass to Owen Tippett for the 2-on-1 goal. But he doesn't suffer from that at all. Plays really in close to his own body, and we'll see if he, how he adds different elements to his, puck handling ability as we go through as well, because he's going to evolve. And I think that's one of the most fun things about the whole thing. Bill, a lot of questions coming in regarding Rasmus Ristolainen. We're just a couple of weeks from the deadline. He's a name that was out there. He obviously missed 4 nations, injured, but he is back. I thought he played really well. 2 points in the Edmonton game, quarterbacking the power play. There's a little showcasing going on there with putting him and Lawton both on the power play.
Well, I think the power play has been such a struggle. They're looking for things that work, honestly. Yeah. I mean, I think that Ristolainen is a guy who gets interest, right? And he has term left, and the contract suddenly doesn't look so bad given the way the cap is increasing. And he's never played in a playoff series. He'd be a guy who just be a bear to play against in a playoff series. So he'll get interest. To me, it's a question of the Flyers will get offers. Can they get a bidding war going? That's where you might get a team to overpay. Short of that, if teams just say, no, this is our offer and that's that, and the team that doesn't ask them to retain might be the one that might get the deal done if there is a deal. But it's really, if you can get multiple teams bidding and drive the price up, that's where I think he might get moved. Otherwise, I think they might hang on to him. He's improved so much on the team, and you could see, you could see even just last game against Edmonton, but just in general, the season is how much he means to that group on your second pairing. Playing about 20 minutes a night a lot of nights, and I think that's a valuable piece. If you're replacing him, what are you replacing him with?
Yeah, right? If not him, who? Yeah. I mean, you're gonna go, okay, that'll be Oliver Bonk's spot. No. But you also need to consider, I don't think his value is ever going to be higher, Bill, for a couple of reasons. Yeah. One, the way he's playing, where he's got those guardrails on his game, so he doesn't take himself out of plays anymore.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, he's a guy that in a 7-game series would pay dividends. And the NHL GMs are paying more attention to that element now than coming off of 4 nations and the physicality. We know what the playoffs are like. They're an absolute bear to get through multiple rounds of the playoffs. And he's a guy that can play that way and be nasty. Not a fighter. I think he's only had a couple fights in his career, but he's a guy that can have a lot of accountability for the opposition on the ice and defend and provide you some offense from time to time as well. To me, his value will never be higher. Yeah. And I agree. You got to get the bidding war because you got to get out of the retention game. You don't want to be in the retention, but if you can get the bidding war, you can not only not retain, but you may be able to get something in return.
Yeah.
Valuable piece for the Flyers. We'll see how Danny Briere handles that going forward. But he's a guy that's going to have tremendous value, I think. Notorious PIG said if you can get a mid-round, first-round pick for Risto, but you have to retain salary to do it. I've got enough first-round picks, and if it's a playoff team trying to acquire him, I don't think that pick's any higher than 22. So I got enough in that range. I don't need more there. So to me, that first-round pick in that range doesn't value the way it would if I only had my own pick in this draft.
No, I think so too. It's not. You might be able to push the pick out another year. Do it that way because I think the Flyers would like to diversify a little bit. They're really deep in picks for this year, but maybe you get some for 2026. But no, I'm not retaining for a mid to late first round pick. That to me is not enticing enough.
Yeah, I got enough in that regard, so I'm good to go. Let's get to this one, Bill. This comes from let's see here, Ryan Watson. I think we know Ryan.
You know, if those who don't know, Ryan Watson is Flyers Hall of Famer Joe Watson's son. How you doing, Ryan? Good
to hear great for him to check in. And he goes, #Ask Billy. The free agent market for centers is there, but many guys are older. What options do you think make sense? And this is something I've talked about quite a bit lately, Bill. And I've hearkened back to the interview I did with Keith Jones right before Christmas when we talked about getting the best guy versus the best available guy. Yes. He said, you get the best guy. And he also mentioned it when he was on PHLY Anthony Gargano's show about the best guy not getting the best available guy. I know people will say this offseason, you've got to get a top line center to play with Matvei Michkov for next year. If that guy's not the best guy and maybe the best guy's available in the year after that, then this is where you got to be patient, because the difference in that decision is the difference between being a perennial playoff team year in and year out to being a perennial cup team year in and year out. That's what's on the line with that decision.
Yeah. And mentioned Ed Snyder at the top of the show, right? The way Ed Snyder thought was always, what does it take to get the best guy?
Yeah.
That's always where he went with things. You know, well, you're probably not going to get the best guy. Well, what about it? What would it take to get him? He didn't give up on that very easily. Yeah. So I think that is a realization, like in the longer term, the Flyers are going to need that guy. You know, if you can't get that guy, then you have a backup plan, but you don't tie yourself in. I mean, I think sometimes going with the best available guy, and I don't mean any slight by this, because he came in and gave the Flyers, particularly his first year, was a really good year. But that year, Kevin Hayes was the best available guy.
Yep.
That year, you overpaid for him, right? Had a decent year, but you were paying him at a higher level than Kevin was going to give you, and it hurts your ability sometimes to get the best guy, because you're tied in long term. You know, of course, we ended up knowing the Flyers ended up just having to kind of basically a salary dump with Kevin Hayes at certain. But that's an example of where you go, well, this is the best available guy this year. That's who we should go for, versus this is our long term answer here. Now, there are kind of intermediate steps too. Sometimes Ryan mentioned an older guy. Maybe you go a year, 2 years on an older guy who's not going to tie your hands long term.
Yeah.
So an example, and I don't know what he'll get in the market this summer, but a guy like a Brock Nelson for a
33 years old. Yeah.
For like 2 years, right?
Yep.
Like a 2-year deal. You know, and again, I don't know what his market value would be this year, because he's still a good player. That's who can come in and help you, but not tie your hands long term. Older player, I would think about something like that, depending on, you know, what your realistic outlook is to be able to get a real top guy in you know, another year from now. The other thing too is that you know, you want that guy to be a center, right? Yeah. That's you want the guy, and to be a natural center, not a guy who can play. Not a guy who can play wing, you know, more a better winger, but can also play some center. You really want that guy to be your solution long term.
You want that to be his center, to be his DNA.
Yeah, for sure. So if you have to go short term with the guy, I can live with that. But I think the focus has to be on finding your guy, if not this offseason, then the next.
And you mentioned something very important. You also got to make sure that you don't kick into your financial situation that can prevent you the year after from being able to push all of the chips in to get the best guy. And look, the obvious thing here, like you can look at, okay, you got John Tavares, he's 34. He's probably more of a winger now anyway, but I look at this center class and nothing wows me about it in 2025. There's either age or the players just, it's not that guy. If the Flyers are to get the true number one center this offseason, it's got to be via trade. And I don't think it's Elias Pettersson. So, I mean, the only guys that I'd be even interested in, but I'm not going to be, because they both right wingers would be Mikko Rantanen and Mitch Marner.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're tying in on a winger, which is fine, you have some talent on the wing you can move.
Yeah.
But I don't think you're going to get that top end center even if those guys are the ones moved. So
because if Connor McDavid is available the next summer, I'm in the
well,
equation, and I got every penny I can offer him.
Yeah.
And look, frankly, and I know some people have mentioned it on social media of late, and you look at a guy like McDavid and you go, "Oh, he's an Oiler for life." Baloney. Nobody's anything for life.
Yes.
Was Wayne Gretzky an Oiler for life? No.
No, exactly. It's easy to say that. Well, they're not going to let him get out of Edmonton, and they're certainly going to try not to have him go. But the player has a say in it too, and when that time comes, you put your best foot forward and you try. You make the best offer you possibly can, and it doesn't matter that he's going to be 29 a year. You get a lot of good years ahead of him.
29 through 36, I'll take it.
Exactly. Exactly. Even if there's a decline in the last year or two of the deal, even if even if you have to move several pieces to get a trade done, right? I'm obviously there wouldn't be a trade done unless they know they're not going to resign him. Yeah. But you do what you have to do. If that player is out there in a year, that's an example of not the best available guy. That's an example going after the best guy.
Yeah. When I hear Keith Jones keep saying it and keep reiterating it, no, we don't want the best available. We want the best. Yeah. I just keep thinking about, and look, people go, well, McDavid's not going to want to come here. Why would he want to come here? Again, if you have the money where you can offer him the max available under the collective bargaining agreement, because that's what's going to take to get him out of there. Number one, first, he's going to make more money on a 7-year contract here than he would make in Edmonton on an 8-year contract of the same value because of the Canadian dollar and everything else. That's number one. Not to mention the marketability of being in a major U.S. city and the endorsements that could come his way, because frankly, he's in Siberia right now in Edmonton in a lot of scenarios when it comes to marketing him off the ice for a whole nother set of agencies that could make money with him.
When Wells Fargo Center was built, right? So I mean, listen, part of getting Eric Lindros was knowing, that was hockey reasons too, of course. But part was we have a new building, right?
Yeah. There's another new building coming now, Bill, too.
There's another new building coming.
Yeah.
Trying to make the Flyers the team that people talk about locally, right? There's just a lot of business pieces here of why you would make sure you have the money to do it. Yeah. Why you would make an all-out blitz to try to make Philadelphia that place. And if he says that's not where I want to go, that's fine. But I'm saying, but just in terms of if it's hard, not set on staying in Edmonton, especially if they fall short of a cup again this year.
Yeah.
They got to the finals last year. They could again. It's a topic for a whole other day. But I will tell you that watching Edmonton's last couple of games before the break and the first game after the break, I don't think Stuart Skinner is going to win you a cup.
No, he's definitely not going to.
So there's a lot of things to consider, and so you keep your powder dry. You see what happens here, and you can move in a direction this offseason that's towards a long-term solution, whether it's somebody else or whether it's the Grand Slam kind of scenario. Who knows? We'll see. But the Flyers have to think big. That's where we're going.
And when you've got a new building coming after you just renovated Wells Fargo Center, Brian Roberts keenly aware of the situation, and thinking along those kind of John Middleton lines when Bryce Harper was available. Yeah. Middleton and his wife flying out there, getting the deal done, doing everything you can. And for the people that think Philadelphia is not a desirable location, for a player 29 to 36 that's had the travel that Connor McDavid has had to endure playing in Edmonton, the travel is an absolute bear for them. In the East Coast, the Flyers take bus rides to some games. It's so close. And train rides to D.C. and to New York. And you sleep in your bed. Chris Pronger did a whole thread on Twitter on it about a year or so ago, how much more he slept in his own bed by midnight because he playing in this Eastern corridor. And look, last thing I want to get to in this is, Bill, is I heard Colin Cowherd last week after the Eagles won the Super Bowl talking about Howie Roseman and how he's a GM that's got tremendous guts, vision, and uses all the levers that are available to him, given the league that he's in, to build the best team. And by using, to put it in NHL parlance, that would be, signing free agents, making hockey trades, drafting, developing, all of those things, restricted free agent offer sheets. You've got to tap into all of these different levers of power and usage that you can as a GM to do great things. He's done that. And I don't think the Flyers are unaware of the perception of Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles, both locally and nationally, as a result of that, and what that means from a business and a hockey standpoint.
No, for sure. And the hockey equivalent of, I think you can look at like Bill Zito in Florida, right?
He's pulled every lever, Bill, to build that team.
He's pulled every lever, and in some cases, it's getting that guy who's hiding under the radar, for Hagee being the poster boy for that, and he's done that all of his front office career.
Savvy move to get Reinhardt out of Buffalo too. Like, we knew Reinhardt was a good player there, but
exactly. And then take it a whole other level in Florida. Sometimes it means you get a rental. You're going for it. He went out and he got Giroux. And they didn't win the cup that year, but just constantly making a statement that you are serious about going for it, and you can do whatever means it takes, whether it's a trade, whether it's in some cases a rental, in some cases just leveraging the assets that you have. But you have to be able to use every means necessary, particularly because everybody in the league knows what your needs are. So no one's just going to hand you what you need. Yeah. So you have to think very creatively.
Yeah, when you're drowning, they throw you an anvil. They do not throw you a life preserver.
Yeah,
and they're not looking to help anybody out but themselves. And I think that's a key part of it as well. Great episode, great stuff, great questions from everybody. We got some leftover ones maybe we'll get to in a subsequent episode coming up this week. Flyers will be back in action tomorrow against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Another member of the Four Nations goal-winning team, Sidney Crosby, will be in town this time. To go from McDavid to Crosby this week. Not bad on the marquee. Yeah. Bill, great stuff. Rebuilds work at PhiladelphiaFlyers.com and NHL.com. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll preview Flyers Pens on a brand new Flyers Daily.